winner. So let's talk about the matchup in Oxford. That was the earlier kick, so we'll start with that ball game. Ole Miss and Kentucky in front of a sold-out crowd. Props where they're due. The whole stripe the stadium, we didn't think it was going to go very well. I don't think most people thought it was going to go very well. It went pretty darn well. I thought it looked good on television, and in person, it was good.
Yeah, for a first-timer, yeah.
I still think it should have been powder blue.
Agreed.
It would have popped a little bit more, but it was noticeable. It was noticeable.
Strong agree there. And
I was just going to say, I was on the west sideline looking east the entire way, which is where the majority of the Kentucky fans that were there, so it was a little bit different. When I went out to midfield for the pregame coin toss and looked back at the west side, I was like, wow, people did what they were asked to do. Almost everybody participated. This is cool.
Pretty much. And a good bit of Kentucky fans there, though. I talked to some people that tailgated next to them, and they were like, you know, we pick a road trip, and this was the one we wanted to go to, and so it was an inordinate amount of Kentucky fans usually than they travel elsewhere. Either way. But
I was just going to say on that point, it was really impressive. I did a little Kentucky Twitter sample after the game, and there were people saying half the stadium and, over. Like, hold on a second. Kentucky sold its entire allotment of 5,000 tickets, which rarely happens anymore for any team that's coming in. You had the advantage of it having been 12 years since Kentucky had played in Oxford, and so there were a lot of people that decided that they wanted to do it. My guess is, I was talking with somebody about it this morning, that probably 7,000, 7,500 Kentucky fans. So you had the 5,000 in the allotment, and then another, 2,000, 2,500 or so that bought tickets on the secondary market. I think it's awesome when it's like that. It makes for a better environment when you've got visiting fans that are that engaged, and outside of a fight or two in the student section, everybody seemed to be pretty well behaved. It was a great scene on Saturday.
How about that clown from Outkick asking Jackson Dart in the post-game press conference about the fight in the stands? Like, do you think the quarterback saw the fight at all and then knows about it at all? Like, of all the things to ask the winning quarterback in a game in which his team just beat the number 7 team in America, you ask him about a pledge fight and the last row of the student section? That's what gets us paid the big bucks these days anymore. Maybe the joke's on me because I would have never asked that question, but I guess that's, why I don't get to write for Outkick.
I just like to picture young Richard Cross up in there throwing elbows and forearm shivers, and getting guys down on the ground.
But
Steve Forky, Michael's brother.
The Blazers give it away. It was a pledge thing.
Being on the last row is dangerous. Somebody makes a wrong move, they're going over. I was just like,
whew. But
no thanks.
For all the whining that he did, and boy, on 3 especially, took his whining about fans at the Tulsa game and turned that into a narrative, just twisted that into he's clearly frustrated with his job. That's what they have turned that into. He said this at his press conference this morning that there was a handful of plays that he thought crowd noise directly impacted Kentucky, one of which was the illegal procedure that wiped the touchdown off the board. That would have been a very crucial touchdown. He directly attributed that to crowd noise.
It would have been a go-ahead touchdown with less than a minute to play. Yeah, it would have been a big deal. I did ask the last 2 questions that I asked Jackson Dart in the postgame show. I thought his responses were great. If we run out of time, or maybe later in the week, we can play it. I run out of things to talk about, like that's going to happen today. I asked him if you've seen him. Jackson Dart wears eye black over one eye, and I was like, "What's the story on that?" Answer. It was a 2-minute answer, going back to 8th grade, not feeling like he had enough swag to do the eye black that he saw an LSU defensive back wearing when he was in junior high. At some point, deciding to go for it. A Star Wars reference, a hunting reference. Shooter going to shoot their shot, and so he finishes that. And I'm like, I didn't really know what to expect when I answered that, but it wasn't all that. Yeah. And then the final thing I asked him, I was like, hey, so everybody says they want a night game, but when you play one of these 11 o'clock games and win, now you get to kind of kick back and watch football. He's like, what time is it? And I was like, 20-3. He was like, oh, we're about to have the best night ever. And I was like, that is the most honest answer ever. Yeah. We got all day left. This is going to be great.
So we're going to have to go off on a tangent here. But my mom, I talked to her yesterday, and she was like, can you tell Will Rogers about that eye black? He doesn't need to be wearing that. It doesn't look good. I was like, Mom, do you know what he does with his eye black? And she's like, no. I was like, he puts a cross on his face to, show you he's a very, very big Christian, very religious kid, and blah, blah, blah. I was like, if you really want to make a joke, it's kind of funny. You want to do good guys versus bad guys. Our quarterback does the cross on his face, and Ole Miss tries to mimic Darth Vader.
What'd she say to that?
She laughed. She's like, well, I guess so.
Oh, man, fitting.
All right.
I got a question about this game, by the way. Okay. How is it that you can, quote, give away a game when you were down 14-0 and never led?
You're talking about some of the Kentucky spin?
Oh, not even Kentucky. I'm talking about the wonderful and glorious SEC Network analysts, multiple. How do you give away a game that you were down by 2 scores at one point and never led? How do you give a game away that you never led?
Matt Jones at Kentucky Sports Radio tweeted after the game. He's like, normally when fans say, about a game that you lost, that one was one you could have won, it's not true. He's like, it absolutely was true today. Kentucky just gave this one away. I was like,
dude, if a ref doesn't step in front of Quinshon Judkins on the 3-yard line as he's going in to score, the game it's considered a blowout. Yeah. If the ref never steps in front of Judkins and Ole Miss scores there instead of turn it over on downs on the 4, because he was scoring there until ref got in the way and he stiff-armed him, which was funny. It's funnier that they won the game. If he does that and they lose the game, it's not so funny. But if that doesn't happen, then anyway, it's that kind of stuff cracks me up. Oh, they just gave it away. They never led. Oh, well, there was a bad call here. Well, a ref literally stepped in front of an Ole Miss running back as he was on his way to score. Oh, well, there's a bad call here too. Yes, Malik Heath caught a first down pass over the middle on a drive where he caught the ball and they ruled it incomplete. Just all of that. Oh, it's the ref's fault. No, it's not. It's your right tackle's fault for letting Ivy get around him and slap the ball out of your quarterback's hand. It's your quarterback's fault for not protecting the ball on 4th down.
First pick in the draft.
It's your kicker's fault for being bad, and it's your kick team's unit for also being bad and letting an extra point get blocked.
This is the way I kind of described it on the podcast, on my podcast. We were talking about this versus State. I said, I thought State created a lot of their own breaks in the game. I thought Ole Miss did a fantastic job of capitalizing on every mistake Kentucky made. And that's what good teams do.
Yeah.
When you make a mistake, they pounce. And
I would agree with that.
That's how I look at it.
I would agree with that, but I do think it's selling Ole Miss's defense a little bit short by not giving them credit for creating some of those mistakes, especially late that Kentucky made.
Yeah, it's not
they exposed that Kentucky offensive line. They exposed it.
It's not like the Auburn, Missouri thing where the guy just dropped the football going in. The second Levis fumble was a defensive end doing literally what they practice every day. Get around the tackle, hit the ball out of the quarterback's hand.
And he got chipped by a tight end, went around the backup tackle who had come into the game. By the way, you got to stop booing players that fall down. I mean, the guy is questionable this week with a hamstring injury, and Jared Ivey got to the quarterback's arm and was able to knock it out before it came down. In the locker room post-game, Lane Kiffin, having a lot of fun with his team, said, hey, who made that play at the end? They go, Jared Ivey. He goes, well, it's about time because he missed 4 sacks last week. They had a big time with it in the locker room. All right, we'll talk more in detail about the game and the way it unfolded coming up. Will Levis goes 18 of 24, 220 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 pretty crucial fumbles late in the ball game, and 1 dislocated middle finger.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Did you get a good angle at that, or did you have to wait till you saw the broadcast to see that?
No, I was watching the game back last night, and I saw it. I had some friends. We were sitting outside watching it, and I said, Raise your hand if you've dislocated your finger inside Vaught Hemingway Stadium. They just looked at me and I raised my hand. You remember a couple of years ago when Ole Miss played Cal in that early game?
Yeah, I remember.
And Chase Garber's airmails one to the sideline, and I just kind of do the reactive. I have a problem with this, guys. Make your jokes accordingly, where I just instinctively reached up to try and catch the ball with one hand in the air. That time I didn't make the catch. Popped my middle finger from the top joint, 45-degree angle.
Screen grab.
Yeah.
That quick screen grab there.
That was a one-score game, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but only after the magic of JRP.
It didn't go their way, so maybe you just got to actually catch these, you know?
Yeah, this one was on the sideline. It didn't really have any effect.
You got to complete the catch.
Yeah.
Levis has tools, man. I mean, he showed them.
He does.
He's got a big arm. His issue is pocket aware, obviously protecting the football. He turns the football over in almost all of his games. Like, if you look at his game logs, there's very few games where he has not turned the football over. Doesn't protect the ball well. Pocket awareness is a problem.
Lots of guys have tools. Most quarterbacks in college football have tools. Doesn't mean that they're going to be great pros. I fear that Josh Allen has turned everybody into looking for the next Josh Allen. Sometimes a guy is just a good to decent college quarterback. And it's because he's big and he's got a big arm. Doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
I'm not taking that
some
1-1.
GMs lose jobs. I'm not taking that 1-12.
Obviously, talking about projections in the NFL draft. If you're not following the 1-1, 1-12 lingo, talking about first round quarterbacks, I think he's a good player. I mean, Borky, to your point about his game logs, if you go back and you look last year, he turned it over. He's not playing behind a very good offensive line.
No.
And a couple of big sacks in the game for Ole Miss defensively.
At times I thought, and it's nitpicky for sure, because they were great defensive. I mean, they played a great game, all things considered. A couple of times I thought they got conservative, where they would only bring three and put a bunch and drop a bunch of guys back, and they gave up first downs because they got too conservative. When they pressured him, he was all out of sorts, and that offensive line could not handle it.
Yeah, and in fairness, they dialed up the blitz at some pretty critical times.
Yeah.
Obviously, late in the game, the safety, that was pretty incredible as well.
He was down, by the way. That was not a grounding safety. That was two knees were on the field.
Yeah, it was a sack down. They didn't call it that way, but whatever. Jackson Dart, 15 of 29, 213 yards, no touchdowns, one interception. It was not a great interception. He explained to me after the game kind of what he saw and what they were trying to fit in there, but he didn't see. I thought Jackson Dart, Kentucky did some things in kind of their zone coverage. They were really effective dropping linebackers deep into coverage. And what were there, in addition to the interception, were there three more balls that linebackers got their hands on and were able to bat down?
Mm-hmm.
And there was
Jordan Wright's a good player.
There's another
number 15
ball
for Kentucky. Sorry, go ahead, Haydad.
There's another ball that they nearly intercepted at the goal line.
And should have.
Safety just sort of ran into the receiver and just couldn't hold on to it. And that cost them the game long term. It wasn't that almost got a field goal in that drive. It's the difference. That's the margin of victory.
52-yarder, which
he crushed that ball. Good Lord. We got a couple of good kickers here in the state of Mississippi this year.
How about that?
Yeah.
No,
what's going on?
He made some rookie mistakes. He's still a young quarterback. I mean, Kiffin is finally starting to stress to people, he's not Matt Corral. He's not. So stop expecting Matt Corral. People at the half were doing the, when do you go to Altmaier thing? Never. He made that mistake at the end of the half when they were moving the football well. But I thought when you consider that is the best team he's played so far in his life, by the way. Best team he's played so far in his life.
Mm-hmm.
So, best opponent, that atmosphere, well-coached team.
He said after the game, biggest game he's ever played in also.
No doubt. And, I mean, Heath had a drop that wasn't a drop, but they called it a drop. Kelly had a drop. Watkins had a drop. When you consider, and the snaps, my gosh, he couldn't get a good snap all day. Threw the timing off of everything. That was horrible. Again, he took a step forward. Is he a finished product? Absolutely not. Not anywhere close. But you see that ceiling, and it's a really high one. He's a good athlete. He's got a good arm. There was a couple of windows that he fit the ball through that were as tight as they could possibly be, but he's got the arm to get it there. He wasn't perfect or anything close to resembling perfect, but if you watch him play and think they're not going to win games with him at quarterback, I think you're crazy. Yeah. The potential is absolutely there, and he shows it.
Once again, Quinshon Judkins shares SEC Freshman of the Week honors, 15 carries, 106 yards, and a touchdown, 7.1 yards per carry, and his burst in the open field is off the charts. I saw somewhere on Twitter somebody did the whole miles per hour thing, and he was running at like 22.5 miles per hour on the breakaway, the long touchdown run into the end zone. What was it, a 48-yard run where he just kind of ran away from everybody?
Yeah.
He's special.
And stiff-armed a ref.
Really good player.
All right.
I need to see a screen grab of that. I didn't see that.
It's funny.
Find it for me, Borky. I want a screen grab of that, and I want my head photoshopped on his body. So you can get me in the Ole Miss uniform, but that's a good look for me.
I think we need to talk about this just for a second. And this is not throwing shade or anything, but the story when Malik Keith transferred to Ole Miss was good. He needs to go. He's not good enough to be a receiver at Mississippi State. Ole Miss was glad to get him. He's turned into Ole Miss's best receiver this season. He had 6 catches for 100 yards and had a drop that was called a drop that wasn't actually a drop, and that would have put him at 7 catches for like $130 in the game. He's been good. You know, there were some people around Ole Miss, and of course they were trying to spin it also, that said, well, this offense where the routes are going to be more downfield routes is a better suited offense for him than the offense he was in at Mississippi State. I think all of those things can be true, right? That Mississippi State's offense maybe wasn't particularly well suited for Malik Heath, that this one works out a little bit better, that Malik Heath has been better than Mississippi State fans wanted to give him credit for, and at the same time, Mississippi State's fine with the fact that he moved on. Can all of those things be true at the same time?
Feels like it, yeah.
It's fair. I mean, some people thrive in different some people just need to change of scenery. And when they get it, they can thrive. And Chase on the text line's right. Talent was not his issue at State. He's always been talented. It's not like he showed up in Oxford and they're like, wait, this guy magically became good in 3 months. It's always been there.
Yeah. And he obviously had the deal in the bowl game against Tulsa. And we had our fair share of fun with that at the time. And that was a few years ago, and he seems to be thriving.
A couple of arrests, but, you know.
So
he's a couple of arrests, but, I mean, he seems to have gotten it figured out up there in Oxford, and you know, he's having a good final year of his career. Nobody should begrudge him that.
The best thing he does is when he gets tackled, he gets up and takes 2 full steps and then puts the ball down. It cracks me up every single time. Like, hey, I mean, I guess he's trolling at this point because no ref's going to fall for that. It's too much, but man, he'll get tackled and take 2 steps and put the ball down, and then they'll run back to the huddle, then the ref has to go get it and put it back to the spot every time.
I think there's a big picture thing that you saw from Ole Miss on Saturday that should make you excited about the future. There's a lot of talk about offensive line, but Ole Miss has had some injuries on the offensive line. Caleb Warren doesn't start. Eli Acker starts at center. Obviously, he had his issues with his snaps. Caleb Warren ends up coming up at the end of the ball game. But for the overwhelming majority of that game, Ole Miss had Pettis at one tackle and Jaden Williams at the other. It's 2 redshirt freshmen anchoring your offensive line on the outside. I mean, Nick Broker continues to play really well. He's obviously a veteran presence in there. You know, Caleb Warren is important when he's in there. He went through warm-ups even though people didn't think he was going to play, and he just kind of stayed on the bike and tried to stay loose, and then goes into the game in the second half. If you've got young tackles that you feel comfortable with and who are playing well, and Pettis was co-offensive lineman of the week or in the SEC, that should make you feel pretty good about the future. If they're productive as redshirt freshmen starting in an SEC game against a top 10 opponent, I think that's a big deal going forward.
With a sophomore quarterback and a freshman running back behind him.
Yeah. So 22-19, Ole Miss wins over Kentucky to improve to 5-0. That's 13 straight home wins for Ole Miss and they continue to play well. Go to Vanderbilt this week. Come back home for Auburn on the 15th for another 11 a.m. kickoff. And then it's LSU and A&M in back-to-back weeks before an open date, and then that stretch run of Alabama, Arkansas, and the Egg Bowl against Mississippi State.